إلى أن وصلنا إلى نكبة غزة. هي نكبة حقيقة، ما يحدث الآن في غزة هي نكبة، وكذلك في لبنان. نزيف لبنان هو نزيفنا، نزيف سوريا هو نزيفنا، نزيف اليمن هو نزيفنا، ونزيف القدس وفلسطين وغزة هو نزيف الأمة كلها. فلنرفع الصوت عاليا أيها الأحباء، حيثما كنا جميعا، أنا في القدس وأنتم في كيب تاون، فلنرفع الصوت عاليا مطالبين بوقف العدوان في غزة وفي لبنان. وشكرا لكم.
From Gaza, thank you بريمستون مشتاق بريه.
From Gaza, thank you مولانا وسيم هندريكس بانوراما مسجد.
From Gaza, thank you Sheikh Ibrahim Toufa, Global مؤمنين مسجد.
From Gaza, thank you to the entire team of Al-Quds Foundation, South Africa, Cape Town. Thank you all donors from South Africa.
Every day we tell each other that this day will be the last, and tomorrow we all can go home free, and all this will finally end. Palestine, tomorrow will be free. Palestine, tomorrow will be free.
حاسة حالي إذا ما كنت مع أمي كان أحسن ما أشوف يعني العذاب هذا والمر هذا اللي بشوفه، المأساة هذه اللي بشوفها، اللي كل حاجة عندي كليتهم، يعني كل اللي كنت أعزهم وأحبهم كليتهم راحوا.
More than 1 year has passed since the ongoing genocidal war against our people in Gaza. More than 42,000 martyrs have been killed, including more than 25,000 children and more than 11,000 women. More than 18,000 children have been orphaned after losing one or both parents due to the war. 96% of Gaza's population, around 2.1 million people, are facing acute food insecurity. Gazans have been forced to drink contaminated and salty water after losing access to drinkable water, with 97% of Gaza's water unfit for human consumption. As winter approaches, the challenges facing displaced families in the Gaza Strip are increasing, as families are faced with two possibilities: drowning in sewage or being exposed to tidal surges. Since the first days of the war on Gaza, Al-Quds Foundation South Africa Cape Town has mobilized its staff to provide relief to the displaced people in Gaza, standing by the side of the oppressed to provide the support it could. Over the course of a year, South Africa and Al-Quds Foundation South Africa Cape Town has been contributing to providing support and relief through many projects, including takia and distribution of hot meals,
الخير لا تدري بمن أعطي سأتيك الثمن والله لا ينسى وكم بالخير قد رفعت محن الخير لا تدري بمن
sponsorship for poor families,
الثمن والله لا بالخير قد رفعت محن مندعيا للخير
medical support projects,
أنت الذي في وجوده هذه الحياة بخير
distribute drinking water,
كن رحمة
providing tents for the displaced, establishing an educational and Quran recitation center, sponsoring orphans,
مطر يغيث من العنا كالفرج من رب السماء يحيي الحياة إذا نزل لا
distribution of food parcels,
العطاء مطر يغيث من العنا كالفرج من رب السماء يحيي الحياة
Korban Project,
لا يمل من العطاء كن داعيا للخير كن رحمة للغير أنت الذي بوجوده هذه الحياة بخير
eye clothing for children and orphans,
الخير كن رحمة أنت الذي بوجوده هذه الحياة
visiting the wounded and their families stranded in Egypt in hospitals, providing cash handouts, and treating some medical cases.
رحمة للغير أنت الذي بوجوده هذه الحياة كن رحمة للغير أنت الذي بوجوده هذه الحياة بخير.
From Gaza Strip to our people in South Africa, thank you so much. Your support has reached us.
From Gaza, thank you Sheikh Ibrahim Jibri. From Gaza, thank you Hajj Yunus Ali.
From Gaza, thank you, Sister Khurshid Ali.
From Gaza, thank you Sheikh Shahid Isa. From Gaza, thank you Maulana Abdul Khali. From Gaza, thank you Sheikh Ishaq Talib.
From Gaza, thank you, Sheikh Abdul Alexander.
From Gaza, thank you Brimstone Mushtaq Bray.
From Gaza, thank you, Maulana.
I call upon Maulana Zakaria to join us, the moderator for the last session of this afternoon. We ended the second session with Dr. Olga Nantia Valfani, and we'll ask her to complete her section on the speech, and then Maulana is the moderator for the third session, and then we will proceed immediately afterwards. We call him as Dr. Olga. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much for your understanding and patience, certainly. So let us see how the Americans could play their cards in the coming period. For a year now, USA has practically flooded Israel with an astonishing level of financial aid, arms, and a near hermetic cover in the international arena for a war that has long ceased even to appear as a defensive one. By this spring, Israel was crossing the American political red lines, such as ducking a hostage release ceasefire agreement and marching into Rafah. In fact, the USA's beefed up military presence in the region, ostensibly in order to deter Iran and the Houthis, in fact openly emboldened Israel's aggressive escalation by imparting a strong sense that you can anything at all without impunity. In the current November-December 2024 issue of Foreign Affairs, there is an article by the USA Secretary of State, the head of American diplomacy, Antony Blinken, under the title, America's Strategy of Renewal, Rebuilding Leadership for a New World. In this article, Blinken is trying to explain what drives on US diplomacy in its functioning over the world, but in fact, one remains with a sense of a real puzzlement. Describing the need to defend a world which in fact never existed, Blinken's entire reasoning is based on the USA and their allies achieving a decisive victory in their worldwide competition with the so-called revisionist countries, defined as, quotation marks, principally Russia, with the partnership of Iran and North Korea, as well as China, determined to alter the foundation principles of the international system. A fierce competition is underway to define a new age in international affairs. Choices these revisionist powers are making mean we need to act decisively to prevent that outcome. Competing vigorously means the revisionists are not permitted to undermining the free, open, secure, and prosperous world that the USA and most countries seek. It's a world where countries, listen, are free to choose their own paths and partners, and where the global economy is defined by fair competition, openness, transparency, and broad-based opportunity. I don't know where he has seen such a kind of world, of course. A world where international law, including the core principles of the UN Charter, the ones that the International Court of Justice defended, is upheld and universal human rights are respected. This world is threatened by the global instability formed by the revisionist partners, close the quotation marks. Concerning Middle East, because he speaks about all the parts of the world literally, starting from Ukraine, of course, Blinken is not much explicit. Borrell was much more explicit concerning Europe. Its main thesis is this, quotations. Russia increased military and technical support to Iran and accelerated negotiation of a strategic partnership with the country, even as Tehran continued to arm, train, and fund proxies who carried out terrorist attacks on US personnel and partners in the Middle East and international shipping in the Red Sea. Relentless of our efforts are the human consequences of the war in Gaza continue to be devastating, says Blinken. All this suffering adds even greater urgency to our efforts to end the conflict in Gaza, find a diplomatic solution that enable Israelis and Lebanese to live in safety on both sides of the border, manage the risk of a wider regional war, and work towards greater integration and normalization in the region, including between Israel and Saudi Arabia. If this effort succeeds, normalization would join Israel to a regional security architecture, it means Arab security architecture, first of all, unlock economic opportunities across the region and isolate Iran and its proxies. Glimmers of such integration we saw on display in the coalition of countries, including Arab states, that helped Israel defend itself against an unprecedented direct attack from Iran in April. It's about the first attack. Blinken's, end of quotations, Blinken's article is as if it has been written in another age and in another area of the world. The whole Middle East is on the verge of going up in flames. The breakdown of deterrence, culminating in the extermination of the non-combatant populations in Gaza and Lebanon, and the series of leaders' assassinations by Israeli, yesterday also, who know whom they killed, has resulted in direct confrontation between Iran and Israel. The Biden administration has so far failed in the most important aim of this war that it declared itself to have, namely a ceasefire and a hostage release deal. In the Kamala Harris-Trump debate in TV, the moderators asked Harris how she planned to break the impasse on the war in Gaza, and she didn't even try to answer. He didn't give any answer. After all, he is part of an administration whose aim pre-October 7th, 2023, was mainly to keep Middle East off the table so that President Biden could focus everything on China. In today's geopolitical reality, Israel is a crucial part of the alliance against the so-called revisionist countries, so-called by the Americans, providing military technology and war experience while confronting Iran, a key link in the axis of resistance. The stance of Biden's administration after October 7th is equally dangerous, as his decisions have set in motion a process of escalation which USA seems increasingly incapable to control. And things would not go better with Trump. Trump's lately stance on Gaza is to call her the Monaco of Middle East, hail its admirable water and its excellent climate, and assure that he, as a developer, will be able to transform all this potential into a tremendous touristic hub. But whoever the next USA president will be, Trump or Harris, and whatever the new red lines concerning Gaza, Lebanon, Iran, we have no partner for peace. We have no partner for peace in Israel. He mocks here Ehud Barak's in Israel. He mocks here Ehud Barak's in 2000 famous words, we have got no partner to talk about peace in Palestine. Against Netanyahu's forever war, unfortunately, there are not any essential diplomatic Western attempts to be expected in the immediate future. I'm afraid that before it gets better, it will become worse. I'm afraid it will take the strengthening of the solidarity mobilization of the peoples of the world, especially the young people, because it's always the young people that come forward, not the 70 years old and the 80 years old, usually, especially the young people, the continuation of resistance in the whole area, the involvement of at least a real opposition within Israel and the USA, political opposition, I mean, as well as an essential shift in the stance of the Arab neighbor countries for the blood and tears to stop flowing in Palestine. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much to Dr. Olga Valvani for that input and very insightful one. But as we know our history in South Africa, we know too well the complicity of the West, even with apartheid. So we are quite familiar with the same actors that are today playing out in other countries. not unusual. It's part of their DNA, unfortunately. They haven't got rid of it. So this is what we have to contend with, and as long as we are totally aware of the circumstances and who the actors are, we need to take the measures that are appropriate to deal with them. As rightfully as you say, it also depends on our young people and the people of our countries, not the governments of our countries. The governments are all on the payroll. They are all bought. They don't speak for justice. They don't speak for equality and freedom. Those are all words that have come today to be words that are false, words that you can't believe. There's no truth in it. And that is what is reflected even in the United Nations Security Council today. The veto, and therefore the South Asian countries, South Africa and all African countries are calling for reform of the United Nations Security Council because of the abuse. And it's high time that this world is ruled not by a unipolar player, but a multipolar players of the world that looks at the justice for all people, to look at humanity at large and not vested interests, where national interest trumps human rights and humanity at large. This is our crisis that we are facing today. Our humanity is being challenged. And unless we take responsibility as people of the world and not governments that are on payrolls, speaking on behalf of others that are proxies for others, it's time that we act. So I appreciate your inputs and being very frank about it. And I think this is what we need to follow through in our awareness campaign that we're conducting like here today. And it must continue. This is the only way to bring about change, is to understand the paradigm and to make that shift so that we can support real justice and real equality and real freedom in the world. With those few words, I'd like to then call upon Maulana Zakaria Falanda to moderate the last session. The last session, we call upon our speakers, namely Mr. Li Xiaohin from China, to join us in front. And then, of course, our speaker, Mr. Martin Weinberger from Austria. And then Mr. Yanis. And we have speaker Professor Farid Ishak, if he has joined us. Professor Farid Ishak. And then we have speaker Nikos Kolias from Germany. There's another speaker that will join Nikos to share that platform with him. So you are all welcome to join us. I skipped one, sorry, island. Mr. Frayus. Mr. Frayus, please. I think we need a few more chairs in front. I think 2 more chairs. Yeah, we'll just bring 2 chairs. No, there's another chair. We'll bring a chair. This is the biggest panel that we have. This is the NGO sector, the most important sector, because we are also NGO, and I think this sector drives the real issues of society, and they are the ones that really save many governments of their responsibilities to their people, with the NGO sector. So Maulana Zakaria, please do us the honors. Thank you very much.
Assalamu alaikum, and a very good afternoon to all of you. Alhamdulillah wa salatu ala rasulillah. I would like to just welcome everyone back to this second session of today. Thank you for joining this program. I'll be your moderator. My name is Zakaria. My surname is Falanda. And this segment is going to highlight the role of NGOs. And before we begin, I'd like to take a moment just to acknowledge the unfolding crisis that is affecting the Palestinian people, brought about by the genocidal Israeli regime. Our thoughts are with those impacted, and while we cannot imagine the extent of their suffering, we recognize the challenges that they face. In times of crisis, the role of NGOs becomes increasingly vital. They not only provide immediate aid and support, but they also advocate for long-term solutions and recovery efforts. Our goal today is to foster an engaging conversation and explore diverse perspectives around the role of NGOs. We have a full, distinguished, learned panel that I'm sure we all are all looking forward to hearing from. To start, I'll briefly introduce our first panelist, and then he'll dive into his conversation. It is none other than Mr. Fra Hughes from the Republic of Ireland. Okay. Okay. Sorry for that mistake, Mr. Fra Hughes. Okay. The topic is NGOs and humanitarian assistance in Palestine, challenges and opportunities. Before I ask you to come to the podium, let me say that Mr. Fra Hughes, he is a journalist of repute. He is an author. The book that is currently doing the rounds is An Activist's Tale, My Walk with Palestine. He is a self-proclaimed anti-imperialist and international and solidarity activist. I welcome you to the podium, please.
Thank you, brother, and I'd like to thank the organisers for arranging this conference, and especially my good and close friend, Nabil Halleck. My name is Fra Hughes. I'm from Belfast in the north of Ireland. I consider to be continued to be under British foreign military, political, financial occupation, just to clear that up. I'd like to start my talk here with a quote from Nelson Mandela, seeing I am in South Africa. On Palestine Solidarity Day in 1997 in Pretoria, he stated, we know only too well our freedom is incomplete without the freedom of the Palestinians. This is as true today as it was then. Mandela was a man Margaret Thatcher branded a criminal, while she feted Augusto Pinochet, the butcher of Chile. I think it's important sometimes not to assume that everybody knows the history of Zionism, so I'm just going to take a few minutes of my talk to give a bit of historical background. I'm not a historian, but I believe what I'm going to say is true, and I've learnt this over my years of working closely with the Palestinian cause. So Israel is a racist, supremacist, apartheid, colonial, white, Anglo-Saxon, European imperialist footprint in West Asia. As long as Israel exists as currently constituted, there will be no peace in the region, no end to its colonial expansionism, the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians from their indigenous lands, and the continued destabilization of the whole region in the interests of American and Western corporate imperialism. But let's review how we got into this perilous state of affairs. Zionism was a 20th century reactionary movement in response to European anti-Semitism. Arabs and Persians, Muslims, Christians, and Jews are not responsible for European Christian anti-Semitism, but the desire for safety drove the Zionist movement to seek a land that they could occupy as their own. Palestine was not the first and only choice. They considered Uganda, offered by the British, Argentina, and Madagascar, among others, as their potential new homes. They settled on Palestine because of its religious and historical roots to Judaism. Waves of Jewish Zionists migrated to Palestine, with the Jewish National Fund buying up large tracts of Palestinian land from Turkish, Ottoman, absentee landlords. These lands were for Jewish immigrants only, thus establishing their apartheid credentials as early as 1902. Through land acquisition and unimpeded waves of Zionist migration, there were over 40,000 illegal Jewish immigrants in Palestine by 1910. With the outbreak of World War I and the defeat of the Ottoman Empire, French and British imperialist ambassadors Sykes and Picot carved up the Levant. The Ottoman Empire cut up into spheres of British and French influence, thereby replacing a military occupation. Every death, every injury, every war in West Asia can be laid at the hands of European and now American imperialist largesse. West Asia was balkanized, sectarianized, and bastardized in the pursuit of resources that belonged to the indigenous population of those lands. They did the same on the continent of Africa, balkanized the land, divided the people, sought to impose foreign alien values and culture on free sovereign communities in pursuit of the exploitation of the people and their resources. From enslavement to cheap labour, the affluence of the West was built on the impoverishment of the global South, Africa and Asia. As the demographics changed in Palestine, there were riots and rebellion in Jerusalem as Palestinian Arabs tried to preserve their society from being undermined by a ruthless core of illegal immigrants who were determined to replace them. This foreign invasion, enabled by the British under the Balfour Agreement, which allowed a shadow Zionist state to emerge in Palestine. The British facilitated the growth of Zionist terrorism through the Stern gangs, the Haganah and the Lehi, armed paramilitary groups whose very existence was calculated to kill, displace and replace the indigenous population. Through 1948 and 1967 and today, we see the continued genocide being visited upon the civilian populations of Gaza, the West Bank and now Lebanon, to include Syria, Yemen and Iran. Tens of millions of people globally march weekly calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. Their voices find no echo nor any friendly ears in Western, EU and American political and military governmental structures. Unless and until the Zionist ethno-supremacist regime in Tel Aviv is dismantled permanently, there will be no peace from the river to the sea. Germany needed to be de-Nazified after World War II. We must have a de-Zionization of Israeli fascist, racist society. People constantly ask, how can help? They feel powerless in front of uncaring governments who offer unwavering support for Israel. Well, let me tell you briefly about Palestine Aid, a registered charity in the north of Ireland, of which I am the director. Following Operation Cast Lead in 2008-2009, I became more aware through social media of the ongoing plight of the Palestinian people. Growing up in Belfast, I saw the murals that showed a Palestinian fighter and an IRA volunteer holding an RPG with the words, "Two armies, one struggle," emblazoned on the walls. I was aware of the massacres in Beirut in the camps of Sabra and Shatila by the fascist Phalange, enabled by the fascist IDF in 1982. After the murderous attack on the humanitarian aid flotilla with the assassination of 9 unarmed volunteers on the Mavi Marmara, I joined George Galloway and, sorry, just 1 second. So, following Operation Cast Lead in 2008-2009, I joined the Viva Palestina aid convoy along with my comrade Nabil Halak, and we spent 35 days on the road making our way to Gaza, where I helped deliver a 13-seater wheelchair-accessible minibus to the Al-Ouda hospital. Since 2010, upon our return, several members of the Irish contingent of the convoy, we brought Palestine Aid into being. Since 2010, Palestine Aid has donated £10,000 for a solar panel project at the Al-Amal orphanage near Gaza City, sadly destroyed in Israel's 2021 onslaught on the occupied Strip. We raised monies for 3 scholarships at the Islamic University in Gaza, which has then been destroyed in 2024. Before October the 8th, 2023, we supplied hundreds of children's winter coats and shoes, toys, sports days, and meat parcels to break the fast during Ramadan. Since March 2024, Palestine Aid has supplied 1,367 displaced families, to include some doctors and nurses, with a one-week emergency food parcel. That's 9,000 people with over 100,000 meals, with another 150 families to be assisted in the next 7 days. $6,000 supplies 150 families with a one-week emergency food parcel. Marching, as people do in the West and in the South, of itself will not help people in Gaza or Lebanon. BDS is a simple and effective method to bring long-term pressure on the apartheid state. The people of Gaza, the West Bank, and now Lebanon will need our help even more after the Israeli campaign of genocide ends. Palestine Aid is run by 3 volunteers in Belfast with 4 volunteers in Gaza. I'd say in the last 6 months alone, we have delivered over $60,000 of food aid sourced in Gaza and distributed by our unpaid volunteers in Khan Yunis, who have themselves been displaced over 9 times and whose homes have all been destroyed. Our patron, Dr. Saib Shaf, lost his father to a white phosphorus attack. He inhaled the phosphorus and his lungs were burnt from the inside, and he died within 24 hours of the attack. He has lost over 80 close family and extended family members in the last 12 months. Words without action is rhetoric. Personally, I have moved well beyond marching. If 3 people in Belfast can achieve what we have achieved, I challenge every person in this room who asks, how can we help the people in Palestine and now Lebanon, to start fundraising, find people on the ground to support, and put your money where your mouth is. Just like the great work that's being done by the Al-Quds Foundation, which we saw on the videos. When this is over, I will know we sent hope, practical aid, and solidarity to oppressed people in their time of need. They feel the world has forgotten them. We told them they are not alone. In the words of Bobby Sands, IRA volunteer, officer commanding the Irish Republican prisoners in the H Block prisons, who died 5th of May 1981 after 66 days on hunger strike, demanding his right to be treated as a political prisoner. These are his words. No part is too great or too small. No one is too old or too young to do something. Our revenge will be the laughter of our children. They won't break me, because the desire for freedom and the freedom of the Irish people is in my heart. And just in conclusion, Margaret Thatcher also called Bobby Sands a terrorist, just like he did Nelson Mandela, Saeed Hassan Nasrallah, and George Abbas. Thank you.
We thank Mr. Francis for that speech, highlighting, giving us some historical backdrop, also focused Palestinian aid and their contributions to Palestinian society, notably, to infrastructure and education, and then the Israeli regime undermining all of that. But it is the work of NGOs such as yourself to persist and continue, even in the face of the adversity. Thank you very much. Our next speaker, and before that, I'd like to just, our final panelist has arrived, Professor Farid Isak. If we can provide a chair for him at the front. Okay, thank you, Professor. Then we'll go directly into our next speaker. Mr. Lee Siu Hin. He is the National Coordinator of the China-US Solidarity Network and the National Immigrant Solidarity Network. He is joining us today to share his thoughts on the same topic as addressed by our previous speaker, NGOs and humanitarian assistance in Palestine, challenges and opportunities. You may take the podium.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Siu Hin Li, last name Lee. In Chinese, it's Li Xiaoxuan. On our culture, last name always in the first. So that's the reason I really grateful that Nabil and Al-Quds Foundation and inviting me coming to here from China to talk about what China has been doing for Palestine and the aid works, because not many people knows about it. Because this section is specific for NGOs, so I won't talk about political analysis or all these things. I will only focus on what China has been helping the Palestinian struggles for as long as last 70 years. Probably most people, when I said last 70 years, didn't know that China has been the strongest, one of the strongest supporters for the Palestinian cause since 50s, when the People's Republic of China formed. And also people maybe didn't know that China has been recognized Palestinian struggle has a representative office, political office since 1965. During the Cultural Revolution under Chairman Mao's leadership, hundreds of thousands of people marching in the capital of Beijing to support the Palestinian cause and fight against Zionism, and even have a representative march to the Palestinian representative office to chanting the Viva Palestine. That's has been the history. However, when I going to Paris October, we have been sending several Chinese aid delegates. I was surprised or even maybe very strange that people said they never saw any Chinese involved in this operation, which is, I thought that was a very surprise. So that's the reason I want to focus on this, because 10 minutes, I don't know if we're going to show the videos, 3 minutes of the videos. Okay, so at the end, that will cut to 7 minutes. And so I was going to say why we are doing this, how we are doing this, and what we've done, and then challenge, and the recommendation. So we'll be very specific. Let me introduce myself. I am a Chinese American. I work and live between China in Shanghai, in US is Los Angeles. We have an international network in US, in China, and other countries doing activism work from the public education to public advocacy to the protests to the online campaign. Charities or maybe NGO is only small part of our work. We do, one hand, we do protests. Another hand, we do class struggles or anti-imperialist campaign. On the other hand, we also doing supporting the people in the ground for donating and helping other peoples. That's the reason we created an organization called Panda 8. And this is the Panda 8, and then specific design for Palestinian unities. I don't know if you can see from here. If anyone can read it's a correct Arabic, in English, People United will be never defeated. In Chinese, because 世界人民大团结万岁. So I would say in Chinese, and then if anyone either want to say in Arabic or English, please go ahead. I would say 世界人民大团结万岁. Thank you. And we have extra, so if you like, I can give it to you. The reason we're creating this symbol, Panda represents China, Palestinian flag, and Chinese flag. We all united to support each other because your struggle is also our struggles. That's the truth. What is anti-imperialism? The same thing. We should be supporting each other. As the indigenous people said, we are not coming to help you. If you are just saying that we're coming to help you, leave. We should be your struggle, bound up with our struggle. We work together. That is why we are doing this. And that's right now, what Chairman Xi Jinping and China said, this is the critical moment in the century, which is we all believe that this is what happened right now could be changed, could be affect the next century. So that's the reason what happened in Palestine also going to be affect China, and the struggle should become together. That is our most important reason. One hand, we are doing a protest, we're doing a direct actions, we are supporting other people's campaign, doing online campaigns. On the other hand, we also recognize that, also understand, just only protesting in the street, direct action, writing an email campaign, public advocacy, doesn't mean that we are also supporting, that we need to be supporting the needs of our campaign, not only on the street of New York or maybe a campaign in Shanghai, but also need to come in directly to Gaza. That's the reason we're organizing our people to go into Gaza to do the support work. That's why. Then how we do this? We're a grassroots campaign, just like we don't have anyone paying us. We're just passing the bucket out of the pocket campaigns. We're using online campaigns and using my mouth. I probably was one of my jobs was used to be a salesperson. I keep pitching people to donate to us, and done that. We did some donations, and then do this and going to first going to Egypt. Everyone, I think the same thing, doing to Egypt. And then we have under connection, activist connections, and we start from this. So we're doing slightly different than the NGO route. We help ask families and friends. We're asking families and friends. So this is a very grassroots effort to do. We know some activist friends or maybe Palestinian friends in Gaza, they need help, then we connect to each other and start from Cairo or start from Istanbul, and then we try to organize the aid campaigns. But also there's a challenge, which is I was slightly surprised because we have been doing this for many years for different campaigns, much easier, but different at this time. This under the strict Zionist control and completely encircling Gaza, that which we cannot easily bring in the aid or very complicated bureaucratic process around the region, which is from Egypt to other countries. We found out that that's not like before. We can just simply carry items, and then we originally were thinking about we're going to carry 8 items, medicines and solar panels and everything, by a suitcase, and then can bring it to Gaza, but it turned out to be not that easy. Probably if anyone did that, then you understand that it's not going to happen that way. We need to build a multi-network of organizing. And also activist organizations, when they do this, they did not have good communication and contacts to support each other, which is also a surprise. In such an internet-savvy world, people don't know each other. So it was last year, the last November, there's been several Western activist groups. They've been not just only a Freedom for Terror, but also the land-based. They have been organizing a Break the Siege campaign, carrying items from Egypt, want to march to Rafah crossing. Then you know what happened. They all got arrested and didn't go anywhere. So we almost want to support them, and then turned out to be it's not really easy, not going to work. So we decided that we need to do it more professionally. We work through with UNs, we work through a major humanitarian organization which is existing in Gaza to start supporting their work. So right now what we are doing is more like a supporting work. Whatever they're doing, and we're helping. For example, right now we're helping Doctors Association, Palestinian Doctors Association. They want a large number of medical items from China. We just got to figure out how to can ship to Gaza. That's turned out to be will become like a middleman agency or something like that, like a trade agency, because it turned out to be not that easy. So we're doing two parts of the works. Number one is we try to sending aid, work with different organizations, sending aid to Gaza. Another thing is the request by the Palestinian refugees in Egypt. They would like us to support them. So in Cairo, we also have been much easier, fundraise and donate items to Palestinian refugees. If we can see the video, there will be a story about that. So that we have been doing this for last we organized 4 Chinese-run humanitarian missions from China, directly going to Cairo and Istanbul to organizing 8 support projects. Last one was 3 weeks ago, we was there. We eventually want, so I humbly say we still not exactly building our base. We're supporting other peoples in Gaza, but we would like to humbly future, we can work with groups that we can build our own medical tent or some other project inside Gaza. So far, what other Chinese group? There's many Chinese organizations doing this, because if you are in, how many people in TikTok? I'm surprised only few people have TikTok, okay. If probably maybe I'm the only one who has a Chinese TikTok, because TikTok Global and the Chinese TikTok Douyin are different. If you're seeing the Douyin, the Chinese TikTok, there's more Palestinian news. Every day we're seeing all this daily news about Palestinian struggles, like 4 or 5 bloggers writing news every day, and also there's at least 30 to 40 grassroots Chinese organizations doing the aid works inside Gaza, which is, I am really impressed. No one knows about that. How they do it, I think the most of the probably maybe same like yours, they do have a Palestinian living in China or other country or friends or families. Then they are doing by connecting with them internet and then sending money directly into Gaza to build a soup kitchen or medical clinics and all this works, which is we're also planning to do. That is we're step by step working on this. And that is, I want to be specific said that there's no such thing as Chinese never involved. There's plenty involved. Then why people did not know there's Chinese or maybe other organization? Because US and West control the narratives. One hand, they control they're spending billions of dollars. Oh, already, okay, 2 minutes, done very soon. Spending billions of dollars to aiding Israel, genocide, massacre in Gaza. On the other hand, they are the biggest donor on the humanitarian project, directly donated to UN and major NGOs. But those money are not going into the aid. They really are paying a big bucks for the staff. So when I in Cairo or other like Amman, they basically every staffs are Western staffs, UN agency or major NGOs. And then they are working on their own project and controlling the narrative. So anything from good, they're playing good guys and bad guys at the same time. You did not know. Other country, not only Chinese, there's no news about Malaysian, there's no news about Indonesian, there's no news about Ghanaian, Africans, other countries. South American have been donating items doing humanitarian work in Gaza, and there's no news. Seems like the only people doing this is only a Western country. I think this got to be break, because if we are working, we need to unite together to fight against the common enemy, the Zionisms, the imperialisms. Then we should have a better way to can work together. So that's one last thing is suggestions. I think so, like right this moment is many organizations need to have, but hopefully that Ingrid Archives can be outreach to China and other groups. So if you can show the video, then I'm finished. Thank you so much. This is on Chinese.
以军在美国的支持下， 长期阻挠和攻击救援物资的进入，蓄意在加沙制造大规模饥荒和药荒。4月中，以色列入侵和占领加沙南部的拉法口岸后，从埃及进入加沙的陆路关口被逼关停，所有由埃及进入加沙的人道主义救援物资全部终止。现在已进入8月，重新开放依然遥遥无期。当下仍不能坐以待毙。根据最新巴勒斯坦权力机构驻埃及大使馆估计，自去年10月以来，已有超过11.5万名加沙人越境进入埃及。在埃及，经过当地组织介绍，我们遇到了由海外和当地社会爱心人士组织，专门为加沙难民提供物资救援的慈善组织 Network for Palestine。经过深度了解和交谈，双方建立信任，我们决定直接为埃及在地难民捐赠生活物品。我们从难民口中了解到，如要从加沙逃到埃及，需要给埃及当局和中间人缴纳每人$5000手续费办理签证。为了逃命，他们不得不拿出身上所有积蓄或者借钱。到达埃及已经是一无所有。由于签证名额僧多粥少，手续费目前已经炒到人均$10000以上。在我们决定和 Network for Palestine 合作后，我们向他们寻求了所需生活物品的清单。我们拿着清单到开罗当地市中心的批发市场购买物资。由于购买过程复杂和语言不通，整个过程琐碎和吃力，但我们尽全力把物资都购买和安排好。我们另外购买床垫，租小货车运送到了组织的捐赠中心。坚定的信念照亮前方，为了和平永不放弃。
Thank you to Mr. Lee Soo-hin, reminding us that a people united will never be defeated, and not only sloganizing and paying lip service, but actually following through, reminding us that the work that NGOs undertake are actually coming from all over the globe. Thank you for that presentation. Our next speaker is Mr. Martin M. Weinberger. Mr. Martin M. Weinberger is a member of the Palestinian or the Palestine Solidarity in Austria. He hails from Austria. He is part of and member of the anti-imperial camp. He is a leader in Self-Determined Austria, a candidate and member of the organizing committee of the Gaza List, Voices Against Genocide, as a protest action in the Austrian National Council election. I hand over to Mr. Martin Weinberger.
Dear friends, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. First, I wanted to thank the organizers. First of all, Nabil Karak and the Al-Quds Foundation, South Africa, as well as Mahrajan, for inviting me here. I really feel honored by this. And I'm quite impressed by this venue. So I walked around here and I Googled it, and I found out that presumably it is the oldest European still standing building in South Africa. So this whole infrastructure was built by European colonizers coming here, building a fortress, controlling the inhabitants of the land, the indigenous inhabitants of the land. It's too loud. Yeah, that's one of my weak spots. So this is quite a symbolic situation. We find ourselves here in South Africa, struggling to get itself free from the apartheid system, succeeding, and anti-colonial, anti-imperialist conference taking place within these walls. The old colonizers would not have imagined something like this. The topic I was asked about to contribute to this highly esteemed conference will be about advocacy and lobbying, how NGOs shape global public opinion on Palestine, exploring strategies NGOs use to influence international policy and raise awareness for Palestinian rights. So I was, if you see closely, this topic is a rather wide one. One of the key observations that could be made, at least within the Western world, Western Europe and the US, and under the leadership and control of the United States, an observation that could be made within NATO and the European Union, which more and more become identical. And one could observe this in these attempts of the last decade to secure a monopolar world order and a tendency towards a global war. This is the direction we are heading to, a global war to secure an US empire. And the observation that could be made, especially also in Austria, is civil societies cease more and more to play a central role in the political processes. So it's a widening gap between the ruling elites of the whole scenario, completely detached to the more and more masses at the downside of these processes. And this leads to more and more a direction towards authoritarianism. We really closely feel this within Austria and within the whole of Europe. And this is a preparation of societies for a constant state of war. Such a society is in need of constant state of war to go on. And the clearest and most cruel example for this on a world scale, this is Gaza. It's the Palestinian cause of liberation, is the most cruel and most clearest example. And there's much talked about civil societies and the NGOs in the West, as we heard from the speaker before. So take as an example Amnesty International. For years, Amnesty International stated that Israel is an apartheid state, it's an apartheid system. There is clear evidence about it. Israel's strategy of ethnic cleansing was denounced. But anyhow, the Zionist regime representing now this, an elite, Israeli elite, even more unmasked, shame, and guiltless than the elites before, which masked themselves at least. The situation escalated in front of the eyes of the world to an active genocide. In the front of the eyes of the world. And escalated to a devastating war in the whole region, against Lebanon, against Yemen, and finally against Iran. And so one could speak about a governmentalization of civil society and governmentalization of NGOs even. So in Austria, for example, Austria and Germany are very close, and Austria tries to follow the German example, at least in the governments that were there. But they are not as successful as the Germans are in building a police state. But Amnesty International declared Israel an apartheid state. The report that came out was for the whole of the world, but not for Amnesty Austria and Amnesty Germany. They let it fall under the table. And this accounts for a lot of NGOs, organizations within Austria. That said, it is to be stated that there is another side to this process, in a dialectical understanding, if you will, when it comes to Palestine and the solidarity movement. The marginalization, regime-wise, of NGOs and their influence in developing governmental policies means that their role as advocates of public and democratic opinion and their role in shaping this becomes all the more important. The marginalization of civil society in these organs, in the authoritarian shift to war societies, makes them all the more important in articulating opposition, in offering a counter-narrative, and in gaining democratic space for articulation. There are two examples I want to give here. One is about Rahma Austria, the main organization providing aid to Gaza, and Austrian government froze all their assets, simply froze it, and went to the donors at home. It's not what you gave 10 euros or 10,000. They came to your door, the security police, secret police, they come to your door and enter your apartment and ask you that why did you give to this organization, what was your motivation, and so on. This is intimidation. This is an intimidation policy. And the last days, Rahma Austria won its case and got liquid again. So this is a success, a political success for Rahma Austria. And another example is UNRWA. UNRWA, the Israelis, with no evidence whatsoever, accused UNRWA on taking part in October 7th. So the Austrian government, blindly following the Zionist claims, and they froze their contribution to UNRWA. So this is very important, because when the Austrian government did not fund any means to UNRWA, as little as they may have been, but by stopping this, they are not just silent about genocide, they are taking part in genocide. They are partners with Israel in a genocide in Gaza, in the hunger war, in the starvation campaign against Gaza. So this makes NGOs a very important means in the political struggle to support Palestine liberation movement and to put an end to Zionist colonial agenda. And we all have observed, very, very short time. So, okay. This is said, I wanted to tell a little bit about a very specific political operation we did in Austria. Before October, our mobilization power for a demonstration, so as the journalist was killed, I forgot the name. We had a demonstration, it was about 250 to 300 people in the capital of Austria, in Vienna. For years, we were isolated, completely isolated, shut out, marginalized. After October, a huge movement appeared, democratic movement from the states, very diverse. And we had demonstrations every Saturday for 1 year. And then in November, it was 5,000 to 10,000 people marching. The media ignored, but there was Muslim participation. Who knows the situation in Austria knows that the Muslim population in Austria is very reluctant to engage politically. Youth participation, and even a very important success. Before, we did not have Jewish voices of some importance that clearly vocalized anti-Zionist agenda. But we got them now. So we challenged the narrative, and we decided to compete in the national elections, in the general elections 2024. So this is the democratic circus. The democratic window they left open by their own rules. So we collected support declarations. We went to all of Austria. We never have been before in some of these rural areas or small towns. We built groups and we got the support declarations within days by visiting the mosques and the communities, even if officially they did not support us because of control of government. So this was a huge success. And one has to remember, and I will be finished, we made this list very broad. It was List Rasa, Voices Against Genocide. This was the name. And in German, Stimmen, voice, also means vote. Also means to vote. So it is to raise the voice and to give a vote for Rasa. And Rasa is 4 letters of a very high symbolic meaning. On a world scale, on a global scale, in regards to liberation of people, equality, anti-discrimination, anti-colonialism, anti-imperialism. And Palestine Solidarity Movement is anti-imperialistic, at least in our range. List Rasa is more than that. It's much more broader and addressing Austrian population also by saying peace through justice, neutrality, and democracy. These 3 important demands refer to Austrian neutrality. By listening to neutrality, the term of neutrality may think that is equidistance. No, it is not. We say restore neutrality. Austrian neutrality was a result of the Second World War. And it meant originally no war with Russia, peace with Russia. And Austrian neutrality in the 80s, when it was the last time that there was a Chancellor Kreisky, Bruno Kreisky, he was Jewish, by the way, and he acknowledged PLO. He acknowledged PLO even if PLO in these times was carrying out military attacks on European ground as well. Compare it to today, so we address this peace through justice by acknowledging Palestinian resistance. And so we gained some democratic space within Austria, and I'm very thankful that I could speak here.
We thank Mr. Martin Weinberger, and most definitely he alerted us to the challenges faced by the NPOs. It's definitely a war that is being waged even now against NPOs through intimidation and the like. We commend them on the great work that is happening and the bold steps that they are taking in terms of Gaza List Voices Against Genocide as well. Thank you for your presence here. We go to our next speaker, who is Mr. Yannis Rakiotis from Greece. Just before he takes the podium, he is a member of the Executive Committee of European Lawyers for Democracy and Human Rights. He will take the podium as such, and he will be addressing us under the topic of accountability and transparency, the role of NGOs in documenting human rights violations. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Salam alaikum. Good afternoon to all of you. First of all, we have to thank Mahrazand and Al-Quds Foundation because they offer us this opportunity to exchange views in this very difficult situation for Palestine and for the axis of resistance as a whole. This critical situation, I could say. The brutal assassination of the great leaders of Hezbollah and Hamas, the martyrs Sayed Hassan Nasrallah, Imrail Haniyeh, Yassia Sinwar now, the also brutal assassination of a number of Iranian officers in Lebanon and Syria, the neutralization of a large number of resistant leaders and commanders, undoubtedly is a serious blow to the resistance movement, but this blow failed to bend the moral and effectiveness of the resistance as it is already proved in South Lebanon. What emphasizes is the enormous inequality in firepower, in logistics, in surveillance, first of all, between the two sides, between the struggling people and the neocolonizers. These barbaric acts proved that the West and their proxies will never stop butchering the people who denied to become their vassals, unless somebody defeats them. They do not respect negotiation and negotiators. They do not respect even their signature under any agreement. Without any hesitation, they killed thousands of children, even the children and the grandchildren of their opponent. Such crimes are beyond anywhere ethics. They are unacceptable under any conception of civilization. Dear friends, it should be clear that the US is seeking for total control in West Asia as a condition to maintain the unipolar world. Their worldview does not tolerate independent states or an axis of resistance in West Asia. The Westerns do not fight in the Middle East only or mainly for the control of the oil reserves. They need total dominance in the area. They know very well that West Asia is the birthplace of important civilizations. It is the land of a long history of the mankind, and they understand that it is difficult to defeat permanently a people with long history and strong civilization. They are afraid of such people. And how do they answer to their fear? They are trying to exterminate as many as possible. This is the situation. Their plan for a new Middle East has no space for Palestinian state, for Palestinians in general. They want the whole Palestinian land for their policeman in the area, the Israeli entity. In this context, the West cannot accept any other alternative than the escalation of the wars in the area till the final submission, as they want to believe, of course, of all independent states, independent movements and parties. And on the other side, the people do not have other alternative than the resistance, than their victory. This is the case. Friends, it is clear to all that the main work is in the hands of the fighters of the resistance. From our side, we ought to express our solidarity to those who are fighting and dying today, with all possible means, including the revealing of the Western crimes, the revealing of the lies they say on a daily basis, describing Americans as what they really are, as neocolonialists, and Israelis as bloodthirsty cannibals who are trying to exterminate as many as possible Palestinians. Next week, a fact-finding delegation from National Lawyers Guild of the United States and other legal workers will arrive in the West Bank to collect evidence and documentation about the Israeli crimes. We need such documentation in order to open criminal cases. We need also to connect the crimes with specific perpetrators, with specific persons. Occasional work is of course important, but permanent grassroots work is needed. We need the formation of permanent, well-funded, independent organizations, professionally organized to document Israeli atrocities and reveal the Western lies. The various big Western NGOs have nothing to offer in this goal, even if they say that they are a little bit pro-Palestinian or against Netanyahu. The resistance needs its own networks. We can use the networks of the opponent. When we speak about information war, one question arises. Which public opinion we need to influence? The public opinion in the 15 strong Western countries which consist of what we call today collective West, or the audience in the rest 180 countries with 7.5 billion people. When the Westerns refer to international community or to the global opinion, they mean simply themselves, their countries. For them, we, the rest, we are not exist. I am afraid that the pro-Palestine demonstrations in USA, UK, Germany, or France hardly can influence their governments because the elite in the West feel, and they are strong enough to ignore the internal reactions against their neocolonial policies. But it is not the same with the solidarity movement in the global South. A strong solidarity movement there could influence the respective governments because all of them confront the same ugly face of the imperialism and neocolonialism. the same bloc of Western states that supports today the extermination of the Palestinians support the war against Russia as well, the provocations against China, organized the coups against Pakistan and Bangladesh, and the looting against the Balkans in our countries. If all of us, we face the same enemy, then it is a pity to hear from high-level officials of some of the strongest non-Western countries that Al-Aqsa flood was a terrorist action, perhaps, or to see other strong countries in the global south to keep equal distance between the victim and the criminal. It is urgent to change this. Addressing directly the people in these states, in the strong global states of the global south, in their languages, with arguments familiar to these people, not the arguments we use when we discuss between us, through appropriate local NGOs or through any other means such as conference publications, etc. Unfortunately, the opponent of the resistance is not only the 5-6 million Israelis in Israel, but the collective West. That means that resistance will win only if it has the decisive support from the non-Western world. My last point. What can we do with the judicial proceedings? How can we bring in front of criminal and civil justice the perpetrators of the crimes against Palestinian people? If you have in your minds ICC, International Criminal Court, be sure that this is not the correct place for justice, unfortunately again. It is an instrument in the hands of the West, persecuting only African leaders and Russians under ridiculous pretexts. We should all the countries of Global South to withdraw from it. I don't have the time to say more, but this is the reality with ICC. Unfortunately. We have to accept that today does not exist any independent international criminal court. It is not a solution to ask for an ad hoc international court in the current situation, because it will work in favor of the West, as it happened with the previous ad hoc courts for Yugoslavia, for Rwanda, and so on. We should not confuse the International Court of Justice, where South Africa and other states applied, with ICC. ICJ is an interstate court, not a criminal one, and its decisions have political impact, but not practical against the perpetrators. Although we do not have an independent international criminal court these days, we do have legal definition practical for all the serious crime against the humanity. This is a very important step, that we have these definitions in international law. What we can do now is to use these definitions in order to bring cases against specific Israelis in front of the national courts in various countries. And I mean countries of the Global South, of course. For this purpose, it is necessary to form a legal committee to examine the legal systems of some countries in the Global South, and there are very good Arab lawyers and law professionals to do this, and together with local activists and lawyers, to file the respective cases against specific members of Israeli army or government, and additionally, to examine the possibility for civil proceedings for compensation against Israeli state as an entity. Finally, it is necessary, I think, to think that it is high time for a campaign to declare IDF and possibly the Israeli entity as a whole as a criminal organization. This is the IDF and Israeli entity. We have to examine this and to work on this. Thanks a lot.
We thank Yanis Rakiotis for laying down action steps, practical action steps that from a legal perspective needs to be taken. Really very bold and insightful words that we should be supporting the resistance in speech and in deed. We need active documentation and support for that documentation of criminality in the West Bank and the various regions. And then the resistance, it requires its own networks, and we need action. Thank you for that delivery. Our next guest and panelist is the son of the soil, Professor Farid Isak from South Africa. Farid Isak is a leading Muslim liberation theologian who cut his teeth in the South African struggle for liberation. He is a professor emeritus at the University of Johannesburg. In 2018, he was presented with the Order of Luthuli, South Africa's highest national award, for his brilliant contribution to academic research and the fight against race, gender, class, and religious oppression. He serves on the board of Africa for Palestine. His topic today, or that he's going to be speaking around, is building sustainable development in Palestine, the role of NGOs. I hand over to the very capable Professor Farid Isak.
Thank you very much. That introduction sounded really long, man. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of God, the gracious, the dispenser of grace. I really wish that the moderator didn't mention the topic, because in the very limited time that one has, it's really difficult, you know. And also, the second thing is that in listening to the previous speakers, they kind of took all the novelty of whatever I wanted to say completely out. Okay, so I understand that I've got about 9.5 minutes. Is that correct? 13? Oh gosh, okay. In any case, when there's a minute or two, just do this to me and I will kind of look at you from time to time and then I'll... Right. So people, it's like what they call the graveyard session, when a session is this late in the day and people have had lunch and they're tired and they would prefer to do other things than to be here and listen to long speeches. So I have a bit of a story that I want to peg my entire presentation on, and at least people will remember a story when they leave here. So I'll be spending about 10, 12 minutes telling a story, okay? So if you imagine, you know, that there is this mountain, and that, like many mountains, has rivers or streams coming down them. And on a particular day, generally, well, it's sexist, but say an elderly woman, she goes past the stream, and she sees a baby coming down the stream. And the baby is obviously injured. She sees this baby coming down the stream, and she, if I can have some water, please. My throat is beginning to feel dry already. Shukran. So she picks up this baby, and of course she's shocked and so on. She picks up the baby and cares for the baby, and she does what is human, to look and care for the baby. And then on another day, she passes again, and the same thing happens. And she does the same thing. And after a while, there are so many babies that have come down that she starts building a clinic or a small hospital or whatever to care for these babies who, check the language, who've come down the mountain. Right. So then, after a while, she realizes that, wait, this is a common problem. Many streams from mountains have this problem of babies coming down the mountain. And she then sets up a network of caring centers in that particular area and later expands it to the rest of the country and then becomes international caring centers for babies who come down mountain streams. In some way, some of you may recognize Mother Teresa in all of this. Okay, so this is what she does. And she is celebrated across the world for doing this. And regrettably, most religious thinking only goes as far as this woman's work goes. So so the babies come down the mountain. There is no concept of who throws the babies down the mountain. The babies came down the mountain. So many Palestinians died. Palestinians weren't killed. They weren't murdered. They died. Palestinian territories, or Palestine, experiences collision, or strikes. And the way the language goes, it's as if there is no agent behind it. There is no bomber. When it comes to resistance, then so-and-so bomber bombed, you know. Right. To come back to the story of this woman, regrettably, most religious thinking only goes as far as celebrating this woman. She is a saint. She does good. Only her work, which we generally categorize as sadaqat, or, you know, charity, or whatever, you know, some goodness thing. But the challenge is, and I'm risking being repetitive, because I've heard the similar sentiments coming from Mr. Lee Swee-Hin and from Martin Weinberger, and of course the colleague from Mr. Rhiotis from Greece. So the whole idea of thinking, who is doing this? There must be some agent behind it. So, of course, we value the work that this woman is doing, but this cannot be the approach of all of us in society. Somewhere there is, you know, to confront Fir'aun. اذهب إلى فرعون إنه طغى. Go. So society often, especially Western society, and of course most of both international NGOs as well as local NGOs, they often buy into this narrative that our responsibility is to care, to look after. Our responsibility is not to challenge. And in this respect, you know, I mean, the kind of work that's being done in China, or the work that the colleague from Vienna spoke about, and the work that we see in Al-Quds Foundation, it's a combination of both. But it recognizes the importance of going up to the mountain. And of course, going up, it's not that easy. It's challenging, it's more difficult. This, you know, this Quranic thing, وَهَدَيْنَاهُ النَّجْدَيْنِ فَلَقَتَحَمَ الْعَقَبَةِ وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْعَقَبَةِ. And so, you know, we show you two paths, and there's though it's difficult to ascend the difficult path. And what is the difficult path? فَكُّ رَقَبَةِ. the freedom of slaves, the idea of liberation. Okay, so then you go up. Somebody has the courage to go up. And then he realizes what is being done here. That there is a whole industry built around the destruction of the lives of these children. But this Pharaoh that you encounter above there, oh man, yes, there is an evil system that's going on there that is responsible for this. And the children coming down the mountains are only the consequences of that system. But then, this Pharaoh, he's the same guy who gives funds to the orphanage. He's the same character that supports and runs all these charity projects, these NGO projects all over the world. Huh? And then, you are now caught, do I confront him about what he's doing? Or do I remain grateful for the fact that he's giving me money to run my orphanages? This is and so this is how the system works. They destroy, they oppress, they annihilate, and they get scolded for that. And at the same time, they get praised for the support that they give. And so in many ways, our limitations, when we speak about, and again, one of my colleagues earlier on, one of my fellow panelists earlier on had spoken about it. When we think that the act of solidarity, that's a political thing. No, these people are the militants. These people are the militants. Why are you so negative? Islam is peace. Islam is peace, Islam is not about resistance. It's not about the liberation of people. It is about being kind to people, being nice to people, So why are you guys so difficult? I like these Muslims, but I don't like the angry ones. I don't like the angry ones, I like, it's like, like the image of Nelson Mandela. I know that moderators generally, it's not their business to listen to talks. They sit there and they only panic, when is this guy going to end? So please, I'm more than happy to look out for. So this is like, this is like Nelson Mandela. Mandela was on Robben Island. Mandela was in prison for 27 years. And Mandela could have been released at least 10 years before that. At least 10 years before that. If only he agreed to disavow, to reject violence. And Mandela said, I'm sorry, prisoners can't negotiate. Okay. And so he stayed on Robben Island for another 10 years. 27 years of his life, okay? And for a number of years before that, of course, he had received his military training in Algeria, and he was an underground, liberation fighter. And so now, people act, the powers that be act, as if Nelson Mandela was everybody's favorite uncle, who only went on picnics with the children. He's this, grandfather of... Anyway, so this is how the language of powers and in many ways the cooptation of NGOs are utilized, are instrumentalized to not just enforce oppression, but to also entrench it. And so I just want to say that, look, in some ways both are indispensable, but the support for the victims, that has its place. But that only has its place within a larger framework of liberation. And liberation recognizes that, yes, there is peace. but you fight for peace. Liberation recognizes that there is a taghut that must be fought against. And the anger of the oppressed is a perfectly legitimate emotion. We're not about smiles. There isn't a single prophet that came into the world and asked, how do I fit in with the dominant power? So it's not our responsibility, to go around saying, how do we fit in? How do we get into with all this? Let's hug, and all of our problems will be over. Let me finish there before I start waffling too much. Thank you very much. Good luck.
There's not much to add after Professor Farid Ishaq had spoken. I thank him for sticking to the time frames. We're nearing the end, but we still have a power-packed ending, inshallah. We have two speakers that is going to be addressing the topic of documenting genocide, crimes, and its vital role in creating pathways for accountability and justice. Our first speaker is Nikos Kolias from Germany. Before we call him to the podium, we want to state that he is a human rights and political activist, a producer and director of documentary films. He was recently in the West Bank, and he made a documentary film that addressed the Israeli attacks and the steadfastness of the Palestinian people. It is indeed an honor. We call him to the podium, Nikos Kolias.
Good evening, friends and comrades. My name is Nikos. I'm from Greece, not from Germany. What?
Is she speaking after you or together with you?
Oh, after. Okay. I'm a member of the 218 film team. Team 218 has gotten its name from the number of the bus that connects the occupied Jerusalem to the rest of Palestine. In the summer of 2022, we went to Palestine to film the political documentary 48 Resisting the Big Settlement, an attempt to express the daily experience of Palestinians resisting the apartheid state of Israel. The idea for this documentary was born after 2 trips to the occupied Palestine and through the contact with the local freedom fighters. Bring Our Voices Out was the answer to the question what we can do as a movement of solidarity with the Palestinian resistance. We have recorded stories of 4 cities and villages in Palestine, culminating in a collective narrative of the Palestinian resistance as an everyday practice. Through interviews, women, men, and children from Nabi Saleh, Hebron, Jenin, and Sheikh Jarrah talk to us about the bans on free movement, the seizure of their houses, the humiliating checkpoints, the imprisonments, and the murders. Through the documentary, we seek to understand the Palestinian issue and contribute to its elevation against the incomplete and distorted information provided from the mainstream media. Our aim is to propagate the documentary to the largest possible audience. We want it to be screened in festivals, cinema, social and political spaces, universities, online platforms, and elsewhere. The film is the result of a collective effort. Each and every one of us contributed under difficult conditions due to Israel's political control. It is a desire of this group to continue creating political documentaries focusing on Palestine until its liberation. Today, the Palestinian call to bring our voices out becomes more urgent than ever due to the ongoing genocide and ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians in Gaza and West Bank. After October 7th, the people of the documentary were once more attacked by the settlers and the Israeli apartheid state. Isa Amro from Hebron, kidnapped by settlers. Bassem Tamimi was arrested alongside his daughter Ahed Tamimi. The IDF blindfolded and handcuffed Ahmed Obasi and Mustafa Sita from Jenin and took them away from their homes during the largest invasion in the refugee camp since 2002. Bassem Tamimi was released in June following 8 months illegal detention. Mustafa Sita has been in prison since December 2023 until now. Every day, 10,000 Palestinian prisoners subjected to torture. We hope that our next visit will be in the liberated, free Palestine. We have 3 videos.
Divide and rule. And this is the main strategy of Israeli system. Divide and rule.
Why it's not possible for me as a Palestinian to walk on my own road, and it's possible for anybody that is not Palestinian to walk on this road.
Are you a tourist?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I'm a tourist.
You have more rights than me.
Right. حلحول. Left سعير. After سعير بني نعيم. After بني نعيم يطا. After يطا السموة. After السموة الظهرية. دورة. بين السبع.
Now I understand what they're talking about. People, they don't know even what is going on in Palestine. They don't care. They care, not care, but yeah, there is something happening there.
فتحناها هون على أساس إنه ما نعرفش نعدي من البوابة، صرنا نعدي منهم. مرات يعني بنقدر نعدي ومرات ما بنقدرش نعدي على الحرم.
يعني لما أنا أخذوني ورجعت على الدور حسيت بشعور إنه ابتعدت عن أهلي، إنه قاعد زي مثل أسير، ولما كنت نايمة بتهلوس، يعني بحس إنه الجيش بدهم يجي بنص الليل يعتقلوني.
تعال يابا خليه يتركوا خلاص تعال خليه يتركوا.
We thank Nikos for his presentation, and the picture paints a thousand words, but I'm going to allow Ivigia, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Ivigimia Kavadia. I got the name on the 5th hour. She is part of the 218 film team, the producer, in fact, of documenting genocide crimes and its effect. I call upon the honorable guest.
Thank you for the introduction. Thank you, Nabil, and Al-Qudus Foundation for the invitation. So, following up the work we're doing as an independent, self-organized, and self-funded film team, we were in the occupied West Bank a few weeks ago in order to meet friends, freedom fighters, non-violent militants, and people who were interviewed in the film. Bringing the Palestinian voices out, speaking out the truth, documenting and disseminating the crimes and the facts of the genocide within the Greek society, and the same applies to the other Western societies too, is crucial, especially now. that the mainstream media embrace the Israeli propaganda, distort the truth, change the representatives of the Palestinian issue, and unfortunately, parts of the international solidarity movement remain silent. We visited a family of militants whose name we will not share for their safety. We spoke to a militant who had recently been released from prison and told us about the conditions of arrest and detention, the torture, the rapes, the extent of the brutality. The violations in the conditions of detention without charge and trial, such as lack of food and water, sleep and physical light, sexual abuse, as published in international reports, were confirmed, even more extended by testimonies that the daily tortures have been committed by Druzes and Bedouins speaking and assaulting in Arabic. Then we went to the Tulkarem refugee camp, Nur Shams, a few hours after the IDF invasion. We stayed and talked to people there. We didn't have cameras with us for our own safety, but we recorded the experience on our cell phones and made a short briefing video that we will show you now. Let's see the video.
يا ساتر اصف يا ساتر بعضهم
Yeah, we can skip the introduction. Beyond the practical information says how we admire the Palestinians.
كل من حطوا أخبارك 500 قدم دكتور كل من حطوا 500 أخبار قدم دكتور اكذب عليهم اكذب عليهم
دخلوا الجيش كان في المنطقة اللي هناك دخلوا جبهة الجيش عند البيت اللي هناك بعدين صار حطوا قناصة وضعوا قناصة في البيت اللي هناك
شايف اشكال تتبعوج احاول قد ما انا سكران مش حصل الباب يا دوبني عرفت كيف وصل الدار حطيت مفتاحي في فك الكلاب ضل متعطرة تدوم القلب.
This is we call it Al-Manshiyya. All the fighters keep hiding here and defend from this point because it have very pathways in it. So the IDF army don't know where they would go, but our fighters know. Thank you. But bombing, clashing, something. I'm Walid Samer, 20 years old from Nur Shams camp. Okay, the life here in Palestine, in West Bank, specifically in Nur Shams camp. After the 7th of October, everything is becoming different. I cannot go more at my university and continue my learning. I cannot go to any city more, like Ramallah, Jericho, any city more. I cannot go out, just sitting in the camp. I don't know what will happen with me in the next hour. Maybe the special forces, maybe the IDF will come on the camp and take me as a shield from the fighters and make clashing at me, trying at me. No one will know what happened with him in the camp. Even my car, they will be destroyed from the IDF. Even my house, when I live in my house, the bulldozers coming. Even I will killed by rockets. No one know what is going on with him. Just be careful.
حل قضية اللاجئين مستحيل حل قضية فلسطين. بالآخر رجوع اللاجئين أهم شيء. عودة اللاجئين على بلادهم.
شايف اشكال تطبع وجهها وقد ما انا سكران مش حصل الباب يدوبني عرفت كيف وصل الدار حطيت مفتاحي في فك الكلاب ونمت على درجة النوم الان وهي نبذي عن يومي انا قطع البحور اسندب فيل على مغدار فراق وعذاب اجاك البهيم ما تضحكلوش انا العراض على الكذاب انا العراض الوهر اللي يتحدى الشبل اللي من ذاك الاسد اللي هناك اخت البلد فهمتوا كيف يلا نيك الغلطان سحب اقسام صدام حسين عقم اعدام ما يسرح فيش ما بسمحلوش حمي التربين بلا سخان انا ابو الانسان الزفر العفر اللي يمتد قبالي الشبر اللي بيعجبش كل حدا الله يهدي اللي اهتدى فهمتوا كيف دموعي من عيني تنزل في التسليم على جبيني لو بعرف انك علشت اللي سمعتش لو خبرتيني
The video is dedicated to Professor Vangelis Pisias. So both testimonies and images we collected before and after October 7th are sides of the same coin. The Israeli extermination policy against the Palestinian population and demonstrate that the war did not start a year ago, but in 1948. Thank you.
On that jarring note, showing us the realities on the ground, we draw the session to an end. The session comes to an end. Thank you to our producing team for their presentations. We have, before Sheikh Shahid comes to the podium to wrap up, we want to wrap up by 5. We have a guest that has made an appearance. Then I got the WhatsApp while I was sitting and asked to introduce Dr. Ahmed Daif. Just a very short bio. Dr. Ahmed Daif is active member in many Islamic organizations in North America and is the president of the Islamic Society in the Central Coast area in California. There's many other accolades. He is ranked amongst the top 2% scientists worldwide in his field, which is industrial engineering. We are going to ask him to grace us with a few words for about 3 to 4 minutes.
Thank you so much. Definitely a very difficult shoes to fill after these amazing and outstanding speakers and the effort they did. But maybe a couple of thoughts to share with you. Coming from that side of the world that basically definitely contributing to a lot of the evilness that we see, but there are always a lot of things that you can reflect on, even if you are in the heart of all these difficulties. In the Islamic tradition, we have the story of Ashab al-Ukhdud, or those people who have been killed after they declared basically their faith, but their story of how they turned to the truth was inspired by the death of a boy or a young man who selected how to die in dignity and in honor. And it's that form of sacrifice that awakened a lot of the people at that time was people. I reflect on that and say that with some analogy, what was happening and still happening in Gaza in the last year, and I'm a witness for that, actually awakened a lot of things and a lot of morals and values in the western part of the world and in all the world, of course. But I can speak to California, and I was part of the student, basically, movement and activity in the last year, students in encampments and students across different universities at the US. And it's basically the same inspiration. And in many cases, we need to put that extra spiritual belief lens to understand that what's happening is happening for a reason and for a purpose. Yes, we need to do our math of what's right and what's wrong and how to start to try to stop the evil on this earth, but we shouldn't lose sight of how there are a lot of side victories and awakening that's happening. I remember basically speaking to some of my students, just got them out of jail, bailed them out, and asking them, why are you guys doing this? Why are you standing? And again, a lot of them are actually from a Jewish background and from non-Muslim background. And they said, basically, we can't do but this. We can't do but this. There is something inside that generation that was awakened by Gaza. There is something that I've been living in Canada and the US for the last maybe 25 years or so, and I've been teaching at multiple universities here and there, so I know students, and I know how basically life there can easily get them caught up in a lot of things. But what I've seen in the last year was actually something that's very unique, and it reminds me with that story, that tradition of Ghulam al-Ukhdud, that his dignity, the dignity that he showed people, the perseverance, the patience, the honor, the steadfastness was the turning point for these people. And this is definitely what we actually, what I can see and attest firsthand from what was happening in the US across universities. Since I have 2 minutes, then maybe I share one extra thought and I'll let everybody go. I don't want to be the one between people and basically getting back home. But the other thing basically, and this is more on the Islamic side of the story, it is very clear, again, among that young generation of Muslims born and raised in the West there, that this discussion about being ummatic, being basically having this sense of ummah is a nation in Arabic, and how basically the whole discussion about their true identity and how do they define themselves beyond the very closed borders of the ethno-state and the modern state of today, how trying to bring up this discussion of being an ummah-oriented individual. And that discussion, that ummatic perspective, is a perspective that goes beyond time and space, realizing that basically if you belong to that ummah, and Gaza brought this discussion to the people. Why do we feel for them? Why should we stand for them? When would this be over? And can it even be over? Right? This very immense level of evilness, and again, for that young generation, never saw something like that. This basically was part of a very alive discussion that, yes, it will be over, but maybe it's not a time and space issue in terms of contained today, but we will work for it as an ummah, as a nation, and with that kind of attachment. Time and space is something that's very relevant that maybe they don't care about that much in a sense. So if to share a couple of things coming from that far part of the world, Gaza awakened a lot of things. These sacrifices and that blood and these pure souls, they didn't go in vain, and they will never go in vain. And actually we are now, based on what we saw, looking into how can we actually make this as awakening calls for this new generation upcoming in the heart of evil, in the heart of Fir'aun, as the professor was basically, Fir'aun house, as the professor was speaking about إذهب إلى فرعون. If you go to Fir'aun there, you will find basically a lot of mu'min ali Fir'aun, as they say, the believer of the family of Fir'aun, ready to stand up for some justice and believing that time and space is relevant and is irrelevant, and it's basically something that we can wait for with a lot of work and a lot of perseverance to change the reality of the world. Thank you so much, and sorry to hold you.
Our segment has come to an end. I apologize if you came from very far corners of the world, and I'm here monitoring your every minute. I apologize for that, but you definitely, all of you, you did justice to your topics. Thank you very much. I hand over to Sheikh Shahid Isa.
So a big thank you to our moderators, Maulana Zakaria and Sheikh Hassan, and also Sister Fadlan, for a job well done, and to all our speakers for the excellent inputs and insights. And also there were 3 initiatives proposed as resolutions by Dr. Ayman for consideration. I don't know if we should consider that as part of the resolutions for the conference. However, before we do that, we have the clip of Dr. Ikrimah, the Imam, the Khatib of Masjid al-Aqsa. And I'm going to ask that because we tried to get it earlier. Can we just check for me, please? Downloading quickly, khairan inshallah. So we'll play that as the message from the Khatib, and we know that Dr. Ikrimah Sheikh has been under house arrest, and he's been harassed as well by the regime. So he's gone through a very difficult time for his age as well, but he of course continues with his persistence, and of course to stand up for justice and for what is right, and speaking out regardless of what happens to him as the Khatib of Masjid al-Aqsa. So we'd like to listen to that message. And then of course, I just want to give a brief overview while waiting for the download. Tomorrow we're gonna have the big Maharajan, and that is Maharajan al-Aqsa, and we'll have of course our international guests that will be speaking at the event. We're having a separate media stand for all our international guests that are here today that spoke. And the journalists will all be here tomorrow, the TV will be here, and they will be conducting interviews with many of you, because we are now putting the whole conference on the YouTube. And they're all invited to come tomorrow, and we'll have a special corner for the media where they'll call upon our international delegates for interviews. So all of you are welcome. We're gonna have a big family event. People are gonna come, husbands and wives and children and grandchildren and grandmothers and everybody. This is the community event and the awareness for our entire community. Not only Cape Town, but from all over South Africa, people are flying in to attend the event. And of course, that will be from 11 o'clock officially we'll start. There will also be food kiosks. We're supporting our community. They're gonna provide food for us. We buy from their food trucks, and all the stalls will be up here. It's a community event. We support them and they support us. And it's one of awareness. So all of us are pooling our resources, and we make it a great opportunity for all participants. On Sunday, all of you have to stay for the special Galia luncheon. That is for Palestine. So we have reserved special tables and seats for our international guests. And of course, you will be addressed there as well. And we also will have a broadcast taking place. So that one will also be at the castle, and that will be a closed event for 500. And of course, it's a gala event. It won't be similar to a conference and the Maharajan. It's more business corporate approach. And we'll also have certain guest speakers at the event. And we'd love you to remain and be part of the program, inshallah, for Sunday. And that will be concluding Sunday. And then, of course, we'll make arrangements. I think our coordinator will probably consult with you if there's any specific arrangement or tour that is organized normally by the organizers for our guests. But that I'll leave to Haj Yunus to finalize. After the clip, I'll call Mona Abdul Khalik to join us in front to then give us the vote of thanks and to make the closing dua. Ready? Then you can proceed in Zahir with the presentation. Okay. Just sound.
النبي الأمي الأمين وعلى آله الطاهرين المبجلين وصحابته الغر الميامين المحجلين ومن تبعهم وجاهد جهادهم إلى يوم الدين. أيها الإخوة الكرام، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. من رحاب المسجد الأقصى المبارك، من بيت المقدس، من مسرى نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، نحييكم ونثمن جهودكم ومواقفكم المشرفة. يقول الله سبحانه وتعالى: واعتصموا بحبل الله جميعا ولا تفرقوا. ويقول أيضا: سبحان الذي أسرى بعبده ليلا من المسجد الحرام إلى المسجد الأقصى الذي باركنا حوله لنريه من آياتنا إنه هو السميع البصير. ويقول رسولنا الكريم الأكرم محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم: لا تشد الرحال إلا إلى 3 مساجد، المسجد الحرام ومسجدي هذا والمسجد الأقصى. أيها الإخوة الكرام، إنها أيام صعبة تمضيها هذه البلاد، ولكن لا يسقط حقنا الشرعي، حقنا الديني الذي هو بقرار من رب العالمين من فوق 7 سماوات بإسلامية هذه الديار، بإسلامية قضيتنا. إنها قضية إسلامية نعم، وهي أيضا قضية عربية، وأيضا هي قضية أممية عالمية. نعم، إننا نثمن جهود إخواننا في جنوب إفريقيا في دعمهم للقضية الفلسطينية. ليس هذا غريبا عليهم، فإن التوجه الديني يلزمنا أن نكون أمة واحدة، يلزمنا أن نتحمل المسؤولية تجاه القدس والأقصى. وكما هو معلوم أن هذه المدينة، مدينة القدس، هي بوابة الأرض إلى السماء، وهي بوابة السماء إلى الأرض. نعم، بوابة الأرض إلى السماء بعروج نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وصعوده إلى السماوات العلى، وبوابة السماء إلى الأرض بنزول الأنبياء والمرسلين إلى رحاب الأقصى المبارك، وأن رسولنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم قد أمى بهم في الصلاة. هذا يعني أنه إمامهم وهو قائدهم في الدنيا وفي الآخرة. نعم، إن الأنبياء والمرسلين قد بايعوا نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم على حمل رسالة الإسلام، كما أن فريضة الصلاة قد فرضت في سماء القدس. هذه الفريضة التي هي ركن من أركان الإسلام، وهي الفريضة الوحيدة التي شرعت مباشرة من الله عز وجل إلى رسولنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم لبيان أهميتها. نعم أيها الإخوة الكرام، إن مدينة القدس حينما نذكرها إنما نعني المسجد الأقصى المبارك، ونعني أيضا فلسطين. أيها الإخوة الكرام، إن مؤتمركم العتيد قد رفع شعار الحرية لفلسطين. نعم، الحرية لهذا الشعب الذي من حقه أن يتحرر ومن حقه أن يستقل، لأن أي شعب في العالم هو مستقل له الحرية، وبالتالي فأن شعب فلسطين من حقه أن يطالب بالحرية وأن يطالب بالاستقلال. فقد حرم شعبنا منذ الحرب العالمية الأولى وحتى الآن، قد حرم من الحرية وحرم من الاستقلالية، فمن حقه أن يطالب بحرية وأن يطالب بالاستقلال. ونحن نشكر مرة أخرى ونثمن جهود دولة جنوب إفريقيا التي تساند شعبنا في سبيل الحرية وفي سبيل الاستقلال. كما ونشكر الإخوة الكرام القائمين على هذا المؤتمر العتيد، نسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى لهم التوفيق والنجاح، ونشد على أيديهم ونثمن جهودهم الطيبة المباركة التي تقف إلى جانب الحق. لأن صاحب الحق هو قوي بأمر الله سبحانه وتعالى. والله مع العاملين وقل اعملوا فسيرى الله عملكم ورسوله والمؤمنون. صدق الله العظيم. والسلام عليكم أيها الإخوة الكرام ورحمة الله وبركاته. أخوكم الشيخ الدكتور عكرمة سعيد صبري، خطيب المسجد الأقصى المبارك، رئيس الهيئة الإسلامية العليا، رئيس هيئة العلماء والدعاء القدس فلسطين. والسلام على سيدنا محمد.
MashaAllah, very appropriate message at the end of our conference. And of course, when we conclude with the vote of thanks, Maulana Abdul Khalik will join us, of course, here. Maulana Abdul Khalik, Barakallahu Fiqh, to do the vote of thanks and dua. And afterwards, there's been tea and coffee prepared at the back and some refreshments for you to enjoy before you leave, inshallah. So everybody's welcome after the closure to enjoy Fadala Saidi. What's the time, Saidi? We have some? Still a few minutes for the drink. Inshallah. Jazakallah khaira.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Good afternoon to our honorable distinguished guests. Shalom. Goeiemiddag. Goeiemiddag is an Afrikaans expression of greetings. أولا نشكر الله تبارك وتعالى. First and foremost, we thank the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for gracing us and blessing us to come together as a free people. And we cannot sufficiently thank Allah for choosing us to be here. He has chosen this moment, a very critical moment, as we have received the martyrdom of the great leader, Al-Ustad Al-Shaheed Al-Qaid Yahya Sinwar, Rahmatullah alayhi rahmatan wasi'ah. He is an inspiration to us and we are inspired by him. We would like to thank, secondly, on behalf of all the free people in the world, niyabatan an jami' muharririna fil alam, Ahlul Palestine, al-murabitin wal-murabitat, all the Palestinians who is standing firm, with thibat, steadfast, without wavering, standing for a free Palestine and for a free world. We should put our hands together and thank them for their steadfastness on behalf of the people here in the conference. Takbir. Thirdly, we are duty bound to thank the founders of the Al-Quds Foundation, those who have laid down their lives, who sits at the distance, and those that has passed on, including earlier on in the morning, Dr. Ayman made mention of our great leader, Sheikh Maulana Ihsan Hendricks, Rahmatullah alayhi rahmatan wasi'ah. May Allah fill his qabr with noor. He laid the foundation for where we are today. And I would like to thank our current leader, Sheikh Ibrahim Jibril, and his entire team for working tirelessly for this particular conference and the continuous programs to bring and to create awareness. I would like to thank our distinguished guest, our honorable guest. Your every moment is a moment that is treasured by South Africans and by each and every one of us. As the members said this morning, and our president, our chairman said, we are here to continue the work. And the work is determined from here. And hopefully we collectively can further be inspired to continue the journey for a free Palestine. I would like to thank our guests who responded to come out here today to attend this conference and being inspired by being here. We thank you for your presence. Your presence indeed is an inspiration. I would like to thank the people that's put every logistic together, Hajja Khurshid and your team, the wonderful meals that has been prepared, the lekker cookies and the tea wat daar wacht daar agter, mashallah, that is awaiting for us, yani الشاي والجميل الأشياء والطعام. نشكر الله لجميع الحمد لله رب العالمين. The sound people, the logistic people, the security people, Allahu Akbar walillahil hamd. This venue that has been made available for us here is indeed a very, very special venue. It has been selected strategically. When you walk here, you should know that you're walking in the footsteps of those who stood firm in the face of injustices for a free world and a free Palestine. And so when you come back here tomorrow, it must give you new determination, new courage, and new vigor for a free Palestine and a free world. Let me thank you one and all and say, Jazakumullah khair al-jaza. Thank you, shukran, baie dankie vir een en almal. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. And we say, Al-Fatiha. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We read on the arwah of all the shuhada and for all of those who are sick and all of those who have been blessed, Ya Rabbal Alameen, with shahada. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'een. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. اللهم تقبل منهم يا رب العالمين ويسر أمور يا رب العالمين أهل الغزة والضفة وجميع أهل فلسطين والمستضعفين في كل مكان يا رب العالمين. اللهم حرر المسجد الأقصى المبارك. اللهم ثبت أقدام المرابطين والمرابطات. اللهم انصرهم يا رب العالمين ولا تنصر عليهم يا أكرم الأكرمين. اللهم أهلك الصهاينة كما أهلكت عادا وثمود يا أكرم الأكرمين. اللهم تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم. تب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه ونور عرش محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. سلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
There's been a request for all the guests to take a group photo before they, just this side, inshallah, for all our international guests and local guests. No time? Tomorrow then, inshallah.